Welcome to the show. The Thursday, August 20th, 2020 edition of the Clemson Dubcast, originating in the lovely basement studios. Football team is done with camp. Had their first day of classes yesterday. We'll practice again today before taking the rest of the week off, and we'll resume next week. TigerIllustrated.com not taking the rest of the week off. Plenty of football coverage today, tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, and beyond. Been a fun couple of weeks covering camp, getting back to, got to think of a different word different from normalcy. That's being used too much. But just momentary sort of pockets of time where you sort of forget about the world being turned upside down and you're able to do what you're used to doing. Title sponsor of the Dubcast since the very beginning, back in August of 2018, Parham Smith & Archenhold Law Firm in downtown Greenville. They want you to know that their office remains open and available to serve you during the COVID-19 crisis. They are also offering their clients the ability to meet via telephone or through video conferencing. Whether you have a loved one who has suffered from a car accident, defective product, a neglectful nursing home facility, or medical malpractice issue, Parham Smith & Archenhold's Greenville lawyers can provide the protection and guidance you need. Free consultations, 864-990-4581, or on the web at parhamlaw.com. That's P-A-R-H-A-M law.com. Football season is grilling season, and Jack Oliver's Pool, Spa, and Patio is South Carolina's premier source for the big three names in grills: Weber, Traeger, and my favorite, the Big Green Egg. Make the most of your stay-at-home tailgate party with a premium gas, charcoal, or pellet grill from Jack Oliver's. Their 10,000 square foot showroom offers a huge selection of grills, patio furniture, and hot tubs and saunas. Shop in the store or buy online at Jack Oliver's Pool, Spa, and Patio, 3303 Forest Drive in Columbia, and jackoliverpools.com. Another loyal supporter of the Dubcast is Blackacre Law Firm in Greenville, a subsidiary of Parham Smith & Archenhold. Blackacre helps South Carolina residents achieve their dreams of home ownership by providing experienced professional representation for real estate closings. Attention to detail is crucial in real estate law. Blackacre is committed to making sure nothing gets by them preparing residential or commercial closings. Blackacre also offers estate planning services for their clients in the Greenville area. Find out more about Blackacre at 864-326-3507. Okay, to our conversation with Clemson basketball coach Brad Brownell. 99.9% of the focus seemingly here at Clemson and elsewhere has been on college football, but hey, there are basketball teams out there that are hoping to have a season too. Great conversation here with Coach Brownell. Enjoy. All right, joined by Brad Brownell. Coach, how you doing, man?
Doing well, Larry. Thanks.
First of all, I want to get into the personal. What are things like with your daughters, your family, and where are they like right now at this juncture, this crazy juncture with school and all that stuff?
Well, they're doing well, thanks. Abigail, my oldest, graduated from Clemson last spring. Unfortunately, we didn't get to do the ceremony and all the big shindigs that go with it. But she is actually starting a master's degree. She's in elementary education, and so she's up at Spearman Elementary this year, and going to be kind of working there all year. So she's living in Greenville and working on her master's in elementary ed and up at Spearman Elementary. So we're excited about her. And then my youngest, Kate, is a sophomore here at Clemson and in the business school and doing well and busy with, she works on the side at the Fizz Boutique downtown and does social media for her sorority and all kinds of things. So they're well. My wife is great. And we're all healthy. So we're very blessed and thankful and doing fine. Thank you.
As a parent, and I guess especially as a dad, you're supposed to have answers. What has the last 4 to 5 months been like, I guess, as your children ask you for answers, and I guess your extended family, meaning your players,
right, are
asking you for answers as well?
Well, you don't have very many, unfortunately. That's what's so frustrating at times, challenging. Not just for somebody in a leadership position, but just for everybody, because we don't like uncertainty. Most of us like routine. I actually I tell my assistant coaches, I don't want any surprises. We're supposed to be prepared and know what's happening, and you need to be thinking ahead at all times in your job. And obviously this is a difficult situation to be trying to do that with COVID-19. Trying to improve communication and make sure that I do a good job as a leader of communicating with, my daughters, my family, my players, their families, just to try to provide as much certainty as I can in an uncertain time. And when I don't know what the answer is, I try to find it out. But if there is no answer, then, I readily admit to that and make sure that people know that we're trying the best we can here. Certainly, fluid situation is, a buzzword that we're kind of living in right now. And that's what it is. Whether it's, whether we're going to be in classes, on campus at some point, are we going to have a basketball season? My daughter, Kate, who's a sophomore, wants to know what's going on just like my players do. And most of the time it's, kind of sit around and wait and just, try to remind people to be thankful for what we do have, the health that we do have and opportunities that are still in front of us. And if we have to derail a little bit, we'll adjust when we do and make the best of it then.
How are the lines of communication through this? Like, what is the structure of that? I mean, I know that the college presidents are on the phone all the time and the ADs as well, but I'm curious the trickle down communicative aspects of that as you're trying to get answers that you can convey and trying to get a handle on everything.
Right. Well, first of all, in terms of athletic department, Dan has just about every month or 6 weeks, probably, we've had an all athletic department Zoom meeting where, they try to give us as much information as they have. And that's everybody in the department. I think that part's been very good. We've had weekly head coaches meetings, where we've talked about a variety of issues, that have happened here since COVID and how we're all kind of dealing with things and just sharing best practices. And then, the one thing that has been different maybe is in the ACC, we've actually every Wednesday morning, we've had a ACC head basketball coaches meeting every week, which we've never done. And so there's probably been more communication between coaches in the league than there ever has been. Now, most of it is, we don't have a lot of answers. None of us really have a lot of answers, but it's almost sharing best practices of what's going on each campus, what we're hearing. Obviously, we're trying to get some updates from Paul Brazow, the guy in charge of basketball up at the ACC office. He's giving us some information that he's hearing and whatnot. But in terms of communication, that's the one thing that's been probably the most unique or different since, I've been here 10 years at Clemson. Never had that much communication with the other coaches.
Can we go, I know you've probably regurgitated this to the point where you could do it in your sleep and you're probably tired of it, but can we go back to the mid-March when you guys are preparing for the second round game against Florida State and all hell breaks loose?
Yeah. And yes, I've done this several times. But it was, it was certainly different. We obviously had a great game, great win, I should say, against Miami in the first round. And that was a 12 or 12:30 game. I can't remember which one. So you kind of get done with that game and it's a normal, ACC tournament game with, decent crowd and guys are excited with the win. And now you move on and we're going to play Florida State the next day at same thing, either 12 or 12:30. I think it was 12:30 that day, maybe. And we go back to the hotel and, eat and, kind of get the guys, and they go upstairs and, start to rest. And as coaches, we get together to put our plan in place. And so we start meeting and watching film and just dive into what we got to do that day and really stay busy all day. And then obviously have a night meeting with our team and things are starting to get a little bit different. And I noticed some things in terms of, hey, there's some stuff that's going nationally, but I'm really not paying any attention to what's going on because I'm just, trying to figure out a way to win the game and prepare our players and meeting with staff and players and game planning. And I remember, Graham Neff coming to me and talking to me about how, hey, tomorrow they're only going to let like 150 people come to the game. And we need to make sure our ticket situation is in good shape. And so kind of talk through a couple things with that, go back, to work, do whatever, get up the next morning at, early and get downstairs and meet with my staff, probably 6:30 or 7 in the morning, and meet for about an hour and go over some final game plan stuff. The players come down probably about 8:30. We have breakfast, do a little team meeting, show some film, walk through some things, hey, get ready to go upstairs. And now it's like, we'll be back down, on the bus at 10:30 to leave. So I go upstairs for the first time in, a couple days and kind of turn on the TV as I'm getting ready to shower and all those kinds of things. And all of a sudden ESPN and some of the other channels are just, they're talking about what happened with Rudy Gobert and testing positive and COVID and just, this is a big deal. And I remember at one point getting on the phone with Graham Neff, calling Graham and say, hey, like, are we sure we're playing today? Is anybody else watching what I'm watching? This doesn't seem like this is a very good scenario. And it doesn't seem like they're canceling the NBA. I find it hard to believe if we play in the morning that by the evening session that they're going to be playing games tonight. And he said, hey, as far as we know, we're go. So I'm like, okay. So I text Amir Sims and Clyde Trapp, hey, want you guys to meet me downstairs in the meeting room, 5 minutes before we get on the bus. And I just kind of grabbed 10 minutes before we get on the bus, and I grabbed those guys and I just say, hey, how do you feel like the team is? Is there anybody that's concerned about what's going on and doesn't feel right about playing? Is you guys sense anything? I don't sense anything, but I'm just trying to find out from you guys. And Coach, we're all good. Everybody wants to play. We kind of know that there's something going on, but we're ready to go, and which I anticipated. So we get on the bus, go to the arena, get into the arena, and, guys start changing, whatnot. They're going to go out and kind of just get loose on their own a little bit, and then start stretching with the strength coach and all those kinds of things. I'm going to write some stuff down on the board, and we kind of do all that. Commissioner Swafford kind of peeks his head in and says, hey, congrats on yesterday. Good win. Looking forward to watching you today. And so, my mind, okay, we're going. And so then just kind of time keeps going. It's, we usually get there an hour and a half before the game. So there's still plenty of time, and probably 45 minutes before tip, Grant pops his head in and I say, hey, we're still a go, right? And he said, so far as I know, we're still a go. He said, there is a chance, though, that there could be another meeting or something between the commissioner and some folks. So, all right, we keep going back to business. Guys come back into the locker room. We're getting ready to kind of go out and do our official warm-up. I'm in there going over the game plan. As I'm going over the game plan, Dan Radakovich walks in and kind of taps me on the shoulder and says, hey, I need you right now. And so I obviously knew, hey, this is probably the beginning of the end. And we walk into a side locker room, coach's locker room, and Commissioner Swafford's in there, Coach Hamilton's in there, the AD from Florida State's in there, and that's when they tell us that, hey, it looks like we're gonna have to cancel the tournament. And At the same time, we want to recognize Florida State as the champions of the league for winning the regular season and those kinds of things. And I just said that, that we'll go out there and support them, that's the right thing to do. And so I had to go back in and tell our players first that, hey guys, we canceled the tournament. I think you're going to see this in other tournaments across the country. There's no good way to tell your team that. You feel awful for your guys. Our guys were unbelievably excited about the opportunity to play and felt good about our chances. And obviously you feel awful for your seniors, those guys who that's the end of their careers, and it happens so abruptly in terms of you don't even get to finish it on the court. That was hard. But we, collected our emotions, kind of took a couple minutes to get ourselves together. And then we walked out there and tried to support Florida State and do the right thing by the league.
And y'all had learned, I guess, was it the night before they announced there'd be no fans?
Yeah, we announced it. That's when I said that they would only have 150 fans per team. And that's when, yes, Graham had come to me with that. And so that's when I kind of made sure we got a few of the folks that, we needed to there. But yeah, that happened the night before.
There's a newspaper rack, an old school newspaper rack up at the Ingalls that we go to, that we shop at. And it's a Seneca Journal newspaper. And I guess they just stopped putting papers in that rack. But the last time they put newspapers in the rack was the first day of the ACC tournament. So it has a picture of Tevin Mack still. The paper has a picture of Tevin Mack on it. It says Tigers preparing for Miami, or Tigers hopeful ACC tournament against Miami. And it's just kind of haunting almost every time you walk by it, like a reminder of, hey, that's when the way our lives used to be.
Everything became real for everybody. That's when, hey, this is something that's, really big. It's going to be a national issue. And then you kind of learn, oh my God, this is, I guess, worldwide coming from China. And it was obviously life-changing. I don't think you realize that until maybe a little bit later. But that's it. That was a tough day. It's a tough day because your guys just, long seasons. Our team had improved a great deal. Really proud of that group, the way they stuck with it. We changed some things. They got better and they were a pretty close group. And, again, they really wanted the opportunity to play in the ACC tournament as far as they could go. And I think they believed that they could be successful. And, it's just, that was a difficult moment there. No question.
So then spring break was the next week. And then at some point thereafter, you basically parted ways with your team, right? Like goodbye.
Yeah.
Like what was
yeah. I can't really remember exact details of all of it now. But yeah, quickly thereafter, guys are home and you're trying to figure out, how to help them be successful with a new online world. And what does that look like? What does that mean? And just, get them to their families and make sure that everybody's okay with their families and, really basketball and anything that had to do with basketball was secondary.
So from that point forward, what was the hardest part over those, I guess, several months as you're doing all this stuff sort of virtually?
Well, I would say, just understanding how your guys really feel. Because, I think that's the one thing through all of this the Zoom calls that is missing. You feel it, in trying to recruit. You feel it with conversations with players. The human touch is extremely important and conversations with folks that, you're right in front of, I think seem different than Zoom phone calls. So I think, making sure your players understand how much you care about them. The Black Lives Matter movement was challenging because when it initially happened, we're not all together. And so Zoom calls did not feel like they were as productive and genuine and as we wanted them to be. And, thankfully we were able to bring our team back in early June. And, we ended up getting together. We really weren't supposed to, but I thought it was more important that we get together and have meaningful conversation as a program. And so we did some things along those lines here at my house as soon as my players got back. And I thought that was, extremely helpful. And so that was, but that was challenging. I just think the personal touch that you lose, like we spend an awful lot of time with our players, obviously in practices and workouts and all those things, but those guys stopping by offices, us, spending time with them, talking to them, getting to see them. And when you don't get to do that, when that's taken away from you, obviously you miss them. You miss being around them. And it's just not the same, sometimes when, you're trying to see them and do things through FaceTime or Zoom calls. And so, I think it makes you appreciate everybody, and it makes you, as a coach, it makes you appreciate your players even more. When you don't have what you love doing and you're not around the people you really care for and the guys that you want to, spend time with, that's challenging. And as an older coach, it really makes you appreciate your players even more.
How would you describe when they were gone their access to weights, to gyms, just to be able to go work out and get up shots?
Very, very sporadic. Some guys had no gyms to go to. There were periods when none of them did, unless you had a goal at your house, because most of them couldn't leave their houses. Then there were a few that could get to a gym, or get to a place that, but to be honest with you, there weren't very many places that, you could get to, inside to work out. Schools, very few schools would let you come in there. Got a lot of guys would try to go to their old high schools, and some guys would not be able to get in. They were locked down. Weights and those things, they couldn't do any of that for a long time. Obviously, we sent them, our strength coach at the time, Coach Bewley, sent workouts for them to try to do the best they could. But it was really challenging, and it was, the guys, obviously some of them became frustrated with it because, obviously they love to play, they love to work out, and, they have a lot of time on their hands. I think that was one of the things that, I tried to talk to our players about. One of the things in one of our first Zoom meetings as a team was, this is one of the rare times in your life when the world is going to slow down. You don't have as many responsibilities. You can't go as many places. You really need to spend some time and meaningful thought about what it is that you want to get accomplished in your life, and where are you right now, and what are you trying to get done, and spend some time thinking about it. And that's, use this as a time to do that. And I think our players, hopefully some of them did that. Especially, I think that hits home with guys as they're a little bit older, but, we just tried to find ways to talk to our guys about. Another Zoom call was, hey, once things had settled down and we were kind of, everybody was doing well and school was good, and we were in, kind of late or into May. It was kind of like, hey, let's spend the month of May. Let's try to find one thing that you think you can get better at home. I don't know what that is. Maybe you're going to dribble with your weak hand in your driveway every day for 15 straight minutes, but you do it every day. Maybe you're going to work on form shooting, and you're going to lay in your bed and shoot, 500 form shots and work on proper rotation and release and spin and, whatever it may be. Maybe you can work on you're passing, you can pass the ball off a wall or whatever it is you got at your house that you have access to, but you're going to spend, 15 minutes a day on this one skill and try to master one skill or drastically improve one skill in a month, spend 30 straight days doing it. So just trying to give our guys things to think about, give them ways that they can still improve without, having access to a basketball court or a goal or whatever it is. And so you have to try to be creative, try to keep their spirits up. Our guys are really a close-knit group. I really like this team. And I think our trip to Naples, Italy a year ago at this time, or a little bit before this, was an incredible experience that really helped draw our guys closer together. Great memories. And so I think that's helped this team bond. And so I think our guys are really close. And that helped them through the process of being apart.
The racial strife and protests that came in the wake of the George Floyd killing brought a lot of difficult conversations between coaches and athletes everywhere. And a lot of things, or some things revelations that coaches maybe hadn't considered before. And even Dabo Swinney, I think, highlighted some of that during the speech he gave at the demonstration at Bowman Field. What was the most, I guess, meaningful thing you took away from that, or something maybe that you maybe hadn't considered that was brought to light by your players?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is it was really disappointing that our team couldn't be a part of that at Bowman Field. We actually had someone test positive in our group, and so we were kind of in the middle of a quarantine situation, and so our team couldn't be there. And so that was something that I hate that we missed out on. But we did some other things before that as a team to really come together, and conversation and some other activities. I think, as much as anything, how much you still have to learn, I think listening to players. I called a bunch of former players, a bunch of our African-American former players that I coached at. I talked to some guys from Wilmington, Wright State, and I talked to a lot of guys, obviously, from Clemson to kind of get their thoughts on things. Conversations with our players, and just, I think sometimes, we probably forget that because we're with our players every day and they seem really good. They seem very happy. They seem that, things are well, but we also aren't with them a lot of other parts of the day. And so we don't know things that happen to them that, are challenging or even unfair. T-Mac told a story of how he got pulled over for driving too close to somebody, Terrell McIntyre, one time just outside of town, and had his young son in the car with him. He never would, that's not something he would have just come shared with me. And so I think there are things that happen that we kind of take for granted, especially as a white 51-year-old, coach that I, don't always think about. And sometimes I don't understand how challenging it is and the difficulties that our players, deal with. And I think, it makes you understand and think about, things like white privilege in a different way, just because you work really hard. And, I come from a lower middle class family and, things like that, and have done very well. I was still on first base. And I think it makes you think in a different way about different things, and see things a little bit more openly. As much as anything, I want to listen and learn and talk with my players about, race relations and things that they have to live with and deal with every day. And it's helped me grow tremendously as a person and coach. I think it's had meaningful impact on a lot of our coaches, and even other players within the program. So I think it's been a really good thing, and one that we have to keep in the forefront of our minds and talk about and continue to have conversation moving forward.
Whether you are selling your property, looking for a new home, or considering investment opportunities, let Crystal Gibson with Powell Real Estate help make the experience a pleasant one. Clemson area native, a lifelong Clemson fan, and a longtime Tiger Illustrated supporter, Crystal's committed to superior service, client satisfaction, and is backed by an agency with over 40 years of service in the Tri-County and Clemson area. Crystal and her family are also good friends of ours. Give Crystal Gibson a call at 864-710-8113 or shoot an email to CRYSTAL Gibson864@gmail.com to find out how she can make your real estate dreams a reality. If you're a business owner and your business involves credit card processing, you need to reach out to Tandem Innovative Payment Solutions. A lot of different ways that Tandem can improve your bottom line by shaving off some of those expenses. In addition to processing credit card payments, Tandem also manages inventory, schedules staff, tracks sales, gains insight into customers, and gets transaction reports. With Tandem, you're not a number, you're a neighbor. Learn more about Tandem at tandempayment.com. Dabo's difficult upbringing is obviously very high profile, a story that's been told a lot over the years. And you've mentioned to me, and you just alluded to it a minute ago, like you didn't have it easy growing up either. Can you maybe enlighten, share some of what you?
I didn't have any challenge. I think that what I was more alluding to is I think my players sometimes, my players see me as this rich white, head coach that lives this, grandiose life, which I do. I mean, I never imagined that this would be what I would be doing, when I was young. I was just trying to be a high school teacher and coach. And I thought that would be great. And things turned out, differently for me. And, a lot of it was me working my tail off. And I'm a hard worker and very committed and passionate about what I do. And so, a Division III player, making it to an ACC head coach, that's, doesn't happen all the time. But I came from a great, loving family. We just weren't wealthy. And that's what I try to tell my guys is like, hey guys, like I didn't grow up, with this kind of wealth and these kinds of things. I didn't have a car until I was a second semester senior in college. And that's only because I had to drive to a high school to go student teach. I said, we didn't go on all kinds of crazy vacations and do different things. I mean, I didn't have a car in high school. I didn't have a lot of things, but I had a great family. I had unbelievable support. I had all the things that you needed. I had good role models in my parents. So I didn't struggle for anything like that. I just wasn't wealthy, and that's okay. But I think the problem is what I was trying to allude to with my team at one time was I think they sometimes view me, they see me as this head coach of an ACC program, and I'm like, guys, that's not who I am at my core. That's just what I've become, but that's not who I am. And I kind of challenge them. You got to get to make sure you guys get to know me too. And, about what I'm about and what I believe in. And some of that they do know and they understand because I coach them all the time. But I think that's the part where you got to get, trying to have deeper, more meaningful relationships with your players and folks, even the people you work with, is critical. And, so it's really easy to perceive me one way because of what you see now, but that's not how I was raised. That's not how I was brought up. I wasn't brought up any different than a lot of the players that I coach, and so, those are just kind of personal conversations that you have with players and your team. And obviously I learned a lot about those guys and some things that they deal with that I probably didn't quite understand they had to deal with as much as I thought they did. And so it's been very good. It's helped me grow a lot.
What do you think about this world of, I guess, added player empowerment, added voices with college athletes? I think Dabo showed some flexibility recently when his seniors proposed the idea of getting rid of the in-season social media ban with players on social media, so now they can sort of use their voices during that time of year as well. What are and I'm sure you experience some of that too with both the pros and the cons, I guess, of players being more.
Absolutely. And I've never had a ban. I've always let our players take to social media. We just try to educate them and talk to them about, what could be, their brand and as individuals and our brand as a program and how they have responsibilities beyond themselves. And sometimes you got to make sure that you're reminding them of that. I do think, hey, these are different times. And I think that's what's hard for some of us at times that were coached differently and raised in the sport differently. My big thing is I just always worry. I'm a big team guy. I want it to be about the team. And while I think we need to be listening to our players more, and I think players need to make sure that they're being heard. And I think it's good that they come together. The one thing that is clearly different now than when we were younger and playing sports is guys across teams know each other so much more now because of, especially at the elite levels, the elite athletes in football and basketball that, in AAU basketball, these guys, the best players all play against each other from all over the country. They know each other, the top 100 lists, these guys see each other. They know who's good players. They communicate. Heck, some of them even recruit guys to play together. And so there's more of a kinship and a bond amongst players than there used to be back when we were younger and even when we were younger coaches and certainly when we played. And so I think because of that, there's more communication and I think it's a good thing. I think their voices need to be heard. I think, we all need to understand, what their thoughts are. And I think there needs to be tremendous communication. Sometimes there's miscommunication, and I don't think they understand all that they are given, all the opportunities that come with it. But we certainly need to understand that there's more to it. And obviously the name, image, and likeness deal is coming through. And, there are bigger things in terms of making it equitable. So we've got to have some way, whether the NCAA, the legislate, like how are we going to manage it? Because there are some things that go beyond just, okay, that's great to give everybody an opportunity to make more money off name, image, and likeness. But how can we do it in a way that keeps the game equitable and it doesn't lead to, to things that make our sport not equal. So there's a lot going on here. Certainly, I'm all for players' rights and players coming together. But and to be honest with you, it's going to be really interesting to see where all this goes in the next 5 to 10 years. And I'm anxious to see.
What's the line between a player, having some sort of issue with something with his team or his coach and taking that issue to social media versus keeping it behind the scenes and addressing it, within the family, so to speak?
Well, that's the ultimate, that's the risk. That's the, there's a trust element that you're trying to build through all this communication, through all this dialogue. You're trying to create trust. Togetherness through trust is a phrase I sometimes use with our team and players, and trust is the number one thing in building relationships with people. Once you lose trust with someone, it's really hard for that relationship to be the same. It really almost never is. And it's hard for that relationship to grow. It usually dies. And so that is breaking the trust. And you obviously talk about those things. You try to keep things in the family, right? And we're going to have dialogue and conversation, and we're going to have sensitive dialogue and conversation amongst each other that doesn't need to be public. And, obviously there are also things that come out and they're sensationalized, and not everything that comes on social media is true, Larry. I know you know that, but I think sometimes people believe everything they read, and think just because somebody says some facts or makes a statement that that's the way things happen, and oftentimes that's not the case. And so, it's really challenging, like managing social media with your players and trying to talk to them. It's interesting. I just was in a meeting last week, and Jonathan Gant, unbelievable job in our, social media platforms. And I guess we're developing, or developed a relationship with Open Doors, a couple of years back. And they're going to be this company that's going to work with all of our athletes about their social media platforms. And there's actually a piece of this company where they're going to go through and they're going to grade your social media platform and be able to present that to each one of our student athletes and give them a grade on, what companies would be looking at and would grade their social media. And so I think there's things like that are going to be happening, that those people are far better at educating our players on things like that than I am. I'm not a big social media guy. And so, being able to find things like that to present to your players, is critical in this day and age as a coach. Like in this day and age as a coach, you're challenged by more different things than probably you ever have been. Roster management, it's not all basketball X's and O's and recruiting. And I mean, you are constantly trying to keep building stronger, better relationships with players and helping them grow. And they have more of an appetite for different things. And so you have to help them in those aspirations and thoughts and information. And if you don't know information, you better find somebody that does. And if you can't help them with something, you better find somebody that can. And that's kind of become even more apparent here, probably in the last couple of years.
It's almost like as a coach, as you're building your culture, you better do it the right way because it's going to be transparent in one way or the other.
Yeah, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
That's good. I really do believe most coaches, really do care tremendously about their players and want to help them do well and want to see them be successful in all aspects of their lives and really help them grow. And we all take great pride in watching them develop in their 4 years that they're with us. And not just the basketball growth, but how they change as people and how they become more mature and how some of them become leaders and, some of them take interest in other things. And, that's what you want to see, as a coach. You want to see that. And if your players are involved in other things, and do take leadership positions and other issues and get it involved, I mean, that growth and that maturity only helps them be better players as long as they keep everything in the space that it, if they can manage their time with it. And I think that's really important.
It's like with the Open Doors thing, another positive is that it's almost like they're an independent voice. It's not your coach who's in control of your play time telling you what to do. It's some sort of an expert, independent industry kind of presence.
No question. And that's part of what I'm talking about. And I think our athletic department does a very good job of that, of, being in the forefront of looking for things to do with our student athletes to, help. One thing that we're all concerned about, the mental side of our student athletes with all that's going on. Right. And sports psychologists and different things, people that they can go to, psychologists that they can go to and talk about issues and problems. And we don't know everything that's going on back home. We don't know everything that they're dealing with. There's just so much uncertainty. How does all of this, not being able to play, what's that do to them? There's a lot. There's probably more pressure on some student athletes than people realize. Some of it's self-inflicted, like we all put pressure on ourselves, but also there's some outside influences there that create pressure for performance. And then just speaking of performance, you got to remember, because of the social media world now, that hey, when somebody plays poorly, there's a lot of people on social media that are crushing your players, right? They're crushing your players on social media. You missed free throws to lose this game. You had a bad game. You can't play in the big games. You don't produce this, that, and you kind of, not being like a huge social media guy myself, I don't really look into all that. I try to stay away from it. They write it all about the coach too. It's part of it, but it's your players, they live in that world, and they extremely impressionable, 18, 19, 20 years old, to be reading those kinds of things. Fans who are, supposedly supporting them, turning on them. And while you tell kids not to read those things, that's out there. And they're going to, unfortunately, probably do some of that. So there's just a lot more. I think there's more stress on players probably now than there's ever been because of some of the social media and talk radio and message board. They don't probably read message boards, but they are aware of more that's going on, and there's a lot more that they chatter that they probably have to deal with, and certainly we did 15, 20 years ago, and certainly way more than 25 years ago.
I don't know if you're familiar with what's been going on at Florida State with their football program. They've had multiple football players sort of going on social media to voice grievances about alleged missteps or not following protocols, things like that. And maybe I have no idea who's right and who's wrong. I'm not informed enough to know. Maybe Mike Norvell's doing a terrible job. I have no idea. But part of me feels sorry for the guy. He's in his first year,
right,
when all this is going on, and hasn't had time to ingrain his culture and develop a lot of meaningful relationships with his players that part of it's so vital these days, as you mentioned earlier.
Well, yeah, that's true. But even for somebody that's been in it a while, Dabo Swinney, Brad Brownell, that's been at Clemson for, whatever. I've been here 10 years now. Hey, there can always be a rogue player that gets a little sideways and feels he's been, mistreated, and maybe he has, maybe he hasn't, but he views it that way. And anybody can go on social media and criticize, and so I think we have to be very careful of that. Certainly for a guy like you're mentioning in his first year, he didn't recruit a lot of those players, and hasn't had time to get things the way he wants. But I don't know what's going on there. But there's going to be more players speak out against coaches. We used to not do that, right? You didn't do much of that. Now it's people are doing that more, and it's going to happen. And I would say from a coaching standpoint, it's not easy to keep an entire roster happy, whether it's 13 to 15 basketball players or 100 football players, or, it's challenging. And, in all experiences. And so, again, that's why I think you have to communicate with your players. You have to be honest and open in your dialogue. And I say that to my players, frequently, that, there are times I've been in meetings with a player in a postseason, and obviously he comes in, and this, most kids transfer because they want to play more. And I know he's asking me, Coach, what do you think about next year? What does it look like for me? And I know that if I tell that young man, hey, you're going to play 20 minutes a game next year, I think you're really improving, but I really in my heart only think he's going to play 8 to 10, but I tell him 20 to keep him at Clemson. And I said, I just can't do that. That's hard for me. I try to paint a picture. Here's where I think you are right now. Now, can that change? Absolutely, it can change. You can make that change, but you need to get better in this, this, and this. And if you have a great off season and you do it, who knows what's going to happen when you get the opportunity next year. Obviously, if you have 8 or 10, 12 really productive minutes, then you're going to get 15 or 16 productive minutes. And if that becomes 20, then it becomes 20. But right now, here's where you were after this season, and some things haven't changed just because you've gotten a year older. You're going to have to make the change based on your performance and your work this off season. Well, that's real communication. That's real honest dialogue. But that's not always what they want to hear, right? They want to hear, I'm going to play 20 minutes. And sometimes it's as simple as that. Everything else can be going great. I'm making good grades. I like our team. I like my teammates. But at the end of the day, I'm working my tail off, Coach. We stay 8 weeks in the summer. I'm, practicing every day as hard as I can, and this is where I'm at. I just don't want to play 8 more minutes as a junior. As a junior, I want to play 22 minutes. And if I need to transfer to a place where I feel that can happen, I'm going to do that. And so my point to that is those are the kind of things that happen. And sometimes there's disgruntlement. Sometimes there's disagreement. Sometimes families see things differently. And so there's always going to be the challenge of having somebody go out on Twitter or somewhere and, talk about something about your program or the experience that they don't like or it isn't good. And it doesn't always, every experience isn't great for every player. I've had several players that have played and, kind of come back when they're, 30, 35 years old. And they come back, yeah, Coach, man, I kind of was a pain in the ass when I was 18 years old. You know what I mean? I understand. I appreciate you dealing with me and helping me through this. And man, I've grown tremendously. And I didn't understand it then. And I didn't even like you very much then for a while, but hey, we stuck together and it worked. So there's all kinds of stories that we have as coaches in these relationships that we're building with our players. And I tell every player, you guys are all running your own race. And I don't know where you are in the race. And some of you are running faster than others. But we're going to try to work together to make you have to finish the race. We've got a slogan in our wall and inside of Swan says, commit to the journey. And we want our players to commit to their journey, their career, their experience. And that commitment takes a lot of things. It's hard to commit wholeheartedly to this journey of getting a degree, of becoming your best version of yourself as a player, of becoming a more mature person. There's a lot to it. I've probably tangented away from what you originally were talking about, but
no, that's okay.
I don't even know if you're still listening anymore.
I'm here. I am here. 100% attentive. Regarding the virus, I know that with football, some serious lessons early on as the players amid an outbreak on that team were learning, hey, I can't go downtown and go be around large groups of people all the time like I'm used to doing during normal times. And it feels like with football and the overall athletics department that you guys have much better grasp of it now. What were those early few weeks like for basketball? I want to say y'all had to shut it down right away, right, for a while?
Yeah, we had one positive test from somebody that had gotten away from us for a weekend. And that's it. Our guys, I've been so pleased with our players. When they left to go home about, I don't know what it was now. It's probably, we left the Friday before. Oh, yeah, I'm terrible with dates. Anyway, about a week and a half before school started, our guys left, and they'd been here off and on for about 8 weeks. And I just was so pleased with our guys because of the decisions they made and the way they handled themselves during COVID. We were here really from the beginning of June until, beginning of August. And we had one guy test positive, and that was right away. And we haven't had any since, knock wood. And so our guys have been very committed. They've been very focused. They've made good decisions. And I mean, unfortunately, you don't have to just go downtown and go to parties to test positive. Obviously, we could all be around somebody for a short period of time and not really know it. And, that could happen. But I do think our guys have made a conscientious effort to really watch what they're doing, to be careful, to make good decisions. And it's been good. Our guys really want to play. We're excited about this season. And so they're trying to do everything in their power to keep themselves out there where they can practice and work out. And the hardest part for us was we brought our guys back early thinking that initially we were kind of led to believe that we were probably going to be able to start working with our guys at the end of June or beginning of July. And so we kind of wanted to get them here, get them a couple weeks in case we had a positive and all those kinds of things. And then, we really didn't get to start working with them until July 20th. And so we only got 3 weeks of work. But they were able to get in the gyms themselves. They were able to work with the strength coach a little bit. So that was good. And I think one of the big things that people don't think about with regard to the safety of our player is when our players, the football team, when they have the season in front of them, when they have something to lose, they're going to make better decisions. They're not going to be perfect. And hey, our guys something could happen to any one of us. But these kids want to play. So they're going to be more careful with what they do. And obviously we're taking every precaution we can as an athletic department to create safe environments for our players. And so far that part of it has been good. Obviously as coaches, I think we're all petrified about when the other kids come back. We know that the kids off campus are all in town now, and there's more going on, and there's more people, and there's more temptation. Obviously, you bring the students back on campus. What does that look like? That's the stuff we're more fearful of, and hopefully we can get a handle on. It looks like Clemson's made a good decision so far to start remotely, and let's just hope we can get to that point.
So are your instructions to them on being careful, once they leave the facility, all the time they're away from the facility? Is it just like
I'm not. Go
ahead.
Yeah, we're not. I mean, I'm not telling them, hey, you guys can't do this. You can't do that. Yeah, I mean, I don't, that's like, I think that's overstepping. Right now anyway, we don't even know when our season is. It's too early for to be that constrictive to your players. That's illogical to think that my guys are just going to live in their dorm or in their apartment and they're just going to come to the facility and just go back and they're not going to do anything. We're just telling them to make good choices. We're telling them to wear their masks. We're telling them to social distance. Obviously, we're telling them to stay away from parties. But they know that if they go do something and they test positive, they're immediately putting their roommate in 14-day quarantine. And then, if there's contact tracing, it could be a lot of the rest of us. And so, that's where we're all joined together. And so we all got to make good decisions. And I think, by and large, kids are going to try to do that. Obviously, it's challenging because it's a different time for these guys, but a majority of the student athletes, I think fans would be shocked at how committed they really are to their sports and how much they really work and how much time they spend extra, watching film, coming in and working on their games, shooting. These kids really, and that's part of that goes back to my thing of like, when you put that kind of commitment in and you're not playing as much as you want, I don't think it's always the worst thing in the world if a guy who's a junior in college leaves and goes somewhere where he can play more. I get it. Like, you only get to do this college experience once. And so the amount of time that these kids invest in their sport and what they're trying to do, it's tremendous. And it's more than when we were younger. And so that's part of, because they're making all this commitments, it all goes hand in hand with why they want bigger voices, why they feel like they deserve more money for name, image, and likeness. It kind of all goes together in some ways.
It's interesting with the normal student populations, I guess here and elsewhere, getting a lot of scrutiny about going to parties and stuff like that. You talk about how well behaved your guys have been, and plenty of other college athletes have been elsewhere. It's like that goal that is there for them to shoot for is kind of a differentiator between athletes and the regular students who are like, well, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just going to go be a college kid and go party and do what I want to do. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's completely different lives. Now, I'm not going to tell you that like college athletes don't go out and have a good time. They certainly do when they can, but they don't have that many opportunities to. They have very regimented lives in terms of class, tutoring, academic meetings, practices, weight training sessions, training room, obviously the season with travel and all that comes with that. There just are a tremendous amount of obligations that student athletes have that, take away their time. And obviously that's the difference. We all know you go to college and, how do you deal with that newfound freedom? There's all kinds of time, that you have. And when you're an athlete, you don't have as much time. And sometimes that's a good thing, because it keeps you busy. It keeps you making good decisions. It keeps you from making poor decisions. And, the kids that are really mature, like our two freshmen that have been here, Olivier Prosper and PJ Hall, are two unbelievably motivated players. Like, they're incredibly hardworking guys that, we have to kick them out of this place. And so my point to that is they just got here and they're still like, we haven't even done anything, this week we didn't do anything, and they're still coming to the gym, all the time. And that's because they're motivated. They want to be good. And, that's what it takes. They know that's what it takes. And so they're going to come in the morning and shoot, and then they're going to do their classwork, and they're going to come in the afternoon and lift weights, and then they're going to shoot again. And, but that's completely different than what most freshmen would be doing.
You said you had the one positive test early on. How many more have you had since?
We haven't had any.
None. So one total.
Correct.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
How complicated are the contact tracing?
Extremely. That's where we're at. Like, we had a meeting with the ACC head coaches yesterday, and we met with Dr. Wolf, one of the doctors from Duke, who I think is on, the ACC team. And that's what they're, with basketball, that's the real challenge right now, is what constitutes contact tracing. We don't have exact answers. Obviously everybody know, hey, 10 to 15 feet or 10 to 15 minutes inside 6 feet with somebody, no masks. Okay. But what does that mean when you're guarding somebody? What does that mean when you run up and down? Is there separation? Is it constant contact? Is it, you add it all? I'm anxious to see, like with football, if, the linemen, what does that mean? Is it's not constant contact because they're going back to the huddle every play, and, maybe the series only lasts, 5 minutes or whatever, and then they punt or score a touchdown. So then we start over. I don't know. Like, I don't think anybody really, I don't know the answer to that yet. And I don't think for basketball, and obviously they've spent all their time on football. They're starting to move to basketball here soon. What does that mean? Because otherwise, you're going to be in trouble if those are all direct contacts. As soon as somebody tests positive, you're going to, pollute your whole team because of a practice. And if you happens to be in a game, you're going to pollute the other team, and now you're in trouble.
Dabo said in football, it's within a 2-yard proximity for 15 minutes. He said the clock's always ticking. My two questions are, who's keeping the clock? Who's monitoring? Who's in charge of monitoring this, number one? And number two, how does it make sense to have all this focus on contact tracing during a practice when when they leave the building, they're together in casual situations, whether it's roommates or just being together?
Yeah. Well, the whole thing it does boil down to testing too now. Like, you have to test frequently enough to know that people are not. And so,
you said that again. You broke up there.
You have to test frequently enough to know that people that are in your group are not positive.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the big sticking points is, everybody came back. We were gone for a week. Everybody went home. We came back. First thing we do, everybody test. Nobody comes in the building. Nobody does anything until we get the results back. Results are negative. Great. Everybody can kind of start to come back into the building, but we still we haven't used the locker room where guys would sit together and hang out. We haven't done that. For our training table meal, like, we have one person at every little high top table, and we have all the tables 6 feet apart. And if you want to get yours to go, you can get it to go. The chairs that we have set up for the guys to come in and change their shoes and stuff or whatnot is, they're all 6 feet apart inside the Swan Pavilion. We've really, the men and the women have not been in the building hardly at all together right now. Now we're going to have some of those things we're going to have to gradually move to, obviously, but so there's a gradual process in all of this, but I think by and large, it's going to come down to testing, and then it's going to come down to how do they view the contact tracing of your sport. Our sport is probably the most challenging because maybe we're guarding each other at a close distance, for periods of time. I don't know how they're going to come to that.
But as you and your fellow ACC coaches are having your weekly conversations, the MVA bubble has to give you all quite a bit of hope, right? Just sort of as an example. Not that you guys can have an exact replica of that, of course, but still that it can.
We've talked, there's been brief talk about a bubble and what, nothing substantial. But obviously there's some coaches that think, hey, that might be the only way for it to work. Obviously there's a cost factor. When do you do it? Where do you do it? How do you make it work with school? Most of the schools are going to be online anyway at that point. So if that's the case, then, can your players still do things remotely? You'll take your academic advisor and, that can all probably work. But there's a lot that's going to go into that. I think the other thing is there a way that we can do this, without being in a bubble? And, then your athletes are really going to have to be, then you're going to have to talk about, like, all right, where can you, now we've got to limit some things. Now you got to talk about curfews, and just by and large, if we get to that point, most of the players are going to try like crazy to play. The other thing is too, you can get this without being at a party, right? You can go to a restaurant downtown and get it. You could, one of your friends could get it, a family member, whatever, could give it to one of my family members to and get it from somebody, and then I, accidentally get it because you don't know about the symptoms. Not everybody, the kid that tested positive for us was asymptomatic. You never would have known that he had it. And so that's what makes it so hard.
If you're in the Eastern Midlands and PD area and you're in any way interested in buying and selling a home, commercial property, land, need to consider reaching out to Uptown Realty. They're based out of Sumter and run by a friend of mine, Patrick Enzer, big Clemson guy, used to cover the Tigers in a newspaper capacity, longtime supporter of Tiger Illustrated, longtime listener to the Dubcast. The home buying process should be an enjoyable experience, so let Patrick and his staff do all the heavy lifting. All you got to do is pick up the phone and call 803-774-0435 or go to uptownrealtysc.com. Harris Flooring has been a major part of the facilities enhancements over at Clemson, not just with athletics, but also at the university level. And we are thrilled that they are a part of the Dubcast as a sponsor. Since 1947, the Junkins family and Harris Flooring have provided a unique shopping experience through value in their services, developing the right product solutions, and delivering on their promises. To check out some reviews on their work, just go to their Facebook page, Harris Flooring America. Rave reviews, just first class all the way. Phone number 864-642-6183. Happy to have Founders Federal Credit Union on board as a sponsor with us. If you've been to a sporting event in Clemson, you've probably heard about Founders already. They are the official credit union partner of the Clemson Tigers. In addition to that, all Clemson faculty, staff, and students are eligible for membership as well as IPTAY members. Matt Gross is a proud Clemson alum and the vice president for the Clemson market for Founders Federal Credit Union. Matt's office is located beside the Walmart Neighborhood Market on Old Greenville Highway in Clemson. For more information, go to foundersfcu.com. So back in March and April, as a society, we were like, okay, we're all on this together. Everything's hunky-dory. And now everybody, not everybody, but a lot of folks are at each other's throats. People are in their typical camps, and there's not really an agreed-upon set of facts. As a team, as just your collective body in there, is the unifying sort of message that, hey, we got to do this if we want to have a chance of playing, and that's it? Or are you guys going deeper than that with differences of opinion and things like that?
I think the common theme initially is just, hey, having the opportunity to play, for sure. I mean, that's the overall easy answer, but I think it's the truth. Part of making the right decisions, it's the right thing to do for the public at large. Unfortunately, the media is, we're in a political year. The media is already divisive. You turn on whatever channel you want to hear what you want to hear. But that's made things more difficult for our country, in my opinion. And it's made it more difficult and challenging for us all to come together. And that's disappointing. And it's something that's real, and it's what we deal with, and it's probably not changing for a while. Maybe things will die down a little after the election, but it's very divisive right now. And so, trying to keep your team together and unified and about each other, with all that, in this time of society and with all the things that the kids have at their, with social media and with all the things that they hear and, from other people, that's a real challenge. Maybe that's something as a rallying cry you can use as we're coming together. We want to be better, be stronger, through COVID, like we're using that as a way to make our team, better, more unified. We're going to sacrifice things. We talk about in our locker room, we have a culture of commitment that we're going to make to one another. And it talks about being integrity, doing the right thing, living the right way, work ethic, a set of a level of work that is expected of you, and accountability for your work, and working for the guy next to you. And then sacrifice is kind of our third pillar of this culture of commitment. And it's talking about, hey, we got to be willing to sacrifice for one another. And in basketball terms, everybody was a great player in high school. Now we're not all going to be the guy that scores the most points. We're going to have to do things for each other. And in this case, we've used it to talk about, hey, we got to sacrifice social decisions for one another to keep our season afloat, to give us an opportunity to play, to give us a chance to do something that we all want to do. And we're all going to have to make sacrifices and decisions that, sometimes we're going to have to pass on some fun to try to have a season. And so we've talked about all that, and we're going to continue to talk about it. I think it's something you have to continue to put in the forefront of your players' mind.
What has you the most excited about what you've seen out of your team so far on the floor?
That's a great question. I haven't been with them for a couple of weeks, but I think they really like each other, and we've had a lot of teams that really like each other. But this team is at a different level with that, I think. And I think we have more depth. I think we have more good players. I don't know if we have a bunch of great players right now. I think we have a bunch of good players, talented players. We have some seniors that have been through some things. They've had success. They've been a part of a Sweet 16 team, so they've seen winning at a high level. I just want us to be healthy. We just have had injuries the last, probably 3 or 4 years. At some point, we've had knee injuries and guys playing hurt. Clyde hurt last year. Shelton Mitchell his senior year playing on bad knees that just, trying, but just not their same level of ability. And, Chase Hunter breaking his foot last year, and Jonathan Baer 2 ACLs, and, Dante Grantham tearing an ACL in the year we go to the Sweet 16. And I just want our whole team to be able to we could get through a year without, big time injuries, and just our depth, our enthusiasm, how much we like each other. I really like this group. I feel like we've got almost 2 people at every position that are good players. And I think through the course of a long ACC season, sometimes your team just wears down. You just don't have enough guys that if a guy starts to wear down and he doesn't play well, you don't have enough to overcome that. And so I'm hopeful that, that's where our program is taking another step.
How's Newman's knee?
He's doing fine. Has not been cleared yet, but is really close, and should be fine. So, yeah, he just had the minor scope. A lot of people don't know that he really tweaked it in the end at one point towards the end of the Miami game, and he was going to play against Florida State. He was fine to try to play, but when we got back and we tried to and looked at it, it eventually needed to get a scope, and so they went in there and cleaned some things up, and he's working through that, but he's going to be fine.
Anything else we haven't covered that's on your mind?
No, just really excited about our new guys. I think our new guys are really talented and great energy and high level athleticism and size. With the one kid we haven't, obviously, PJ Hall, a lot of guys know about him just from Spartanburg and won a bunch of state championships there, and very highly recruited guy, and has a chance to be a really good player, hard worker. Most people don't know a lot about Olivier Omax, but they're going to find out he's good. He's really bright, 1200 SAT, incredible worker, can play a couple different positions, and man, does he want to be good. He's in the gym all the time and very mature for his age. So super excited about him. And then the other young man we signed at the end, Lynn Kidd, here late. We haven't worked with him at all, but always good to bring a 6'10", 230-pound freshman in. So he's got some athleticism and tools to finish around the basket, block shots that we like. So I just couldn't be more pleased with the freshman class that we brought in. I think it's the best class, probably the best class that we've signed since I've been at Clemson. So really a talented group.
This recruiting surge you're on, is it just a fruition of stuff we've talked about the last couple of years with the facilities being enhanced
I certainly think the facility enhancement, plays a role because it shows people you're serious about basketball. We obviously get negatively recruited against Clemson being only a football school. They don't care about basketball there, all that stuff, especially by, certainly by some other schools in our league or whatever, but also by like Big East schools, you know what I mean? Schools that only have basketball, schools that don't have football. And so their primary thing is basketball. And so they use that as a way to really kind of hammer us. And so I think that's one thing that has helped us, offset that is, hey, if we didn't care, look at this, look what we've done. And obviously, I've talked about the amount of time I've spent during my time here, getting with boosters and building relationships to create an environment where we can have all the things we need and we can operate in a first class way. And we're doing that now and providing our guys with an incredible experience. And that comes through in the recruiting process. The longer the recruiting goes, and on the high level kids, that's really important. If you don't, as much as anything, especially in basketball, because you're only recruiting 3 players, maybe the amount of, everybody's looking at everything. They examine everything to the point, and people are obviously lying and saying all kinds of things to make your situation look worse. And so to be able to make sure that there's a box that isn't checked, you're as much as anything, you're making sure every box is checked for the recruit. And so there's no reason not to come to Clemson. And I think that's part of that. And then obviously I think the fact that going to the Sweet 16 a couple years ago and having some success and, we've had a couple guys, get drafted and all that kind of stuff. It all helps. And then, my assistants have done a really good job. The guys on staff right now have really worked hard, and we've done a good job of identifying guys that we think fit our situation. And obviously our freshman class last year, we think was really good, and a bunch of guards. And now we've signed a bunch of front court guys. And so, we're really excited about that.
One last question, if you don't mind. As universities elsewhere, some of them stumble out of the starting blocks with students being on campus, and they send them home. There's the emerging argument that if you don't have students on campus going to classes, then you can't have athletics. That it just proves that provides further proof that they're employees. I think that's a cynical outlook on it personally, but I'm just I'm curious what your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously, if you ask the players are going to want to play, right? To be honest with you, if the students aren't here, it might be a safer environment for our players, right? Then if there's more students, the less students that are around us, the less opportunity there is for my guys to be around other people that could potentially give them COVID. Obviously, we were basically here for 2 months this summer. We had one guy test positive right at the beginning, nobody else for 2 more months. Well, we didn't have a lot of people around Clemson at that time, right? We just now our guys were free to go wherever they wanted to go. They even went home a couple times and came, one time and came back. But day to day, we had a regimented schedule. They were in it. They're doing their schoolwork. They're taking their summer classes. They're lifting their weights. They're coming to the gym. And that's what they want to do. And so, I understand what the optics look like. It looks like, well, why would our student athletes be there? It doesn't look like it's as safe as, if it's not safe for the students, then why is it safe for them? I might argue that it's more safe for them. And it's probably more safe than if you send them back home to the environments where they are by themselves. I don't know that that's what's best for them. And obviously the care that they get, the doctors are around, the trainers are around, the precautions that are put in place to try to put them in position to be successful, the academic support that's here to help them make sure that they're successful. Students do, it's great, and they should be getting as much as they can get. Like, I want student athletes to get, have opportunities to capitalize on their brands and themselves. But they have a great life here. They are provided a tremendous education with unbelievable support academically, doctors, sports psychologists, weight training, coaching, tutoring. They live an incredible. They have an incredible experience, incredible opportunity, and then hopefully make that into a memorable experience for themselves. So, tangenting again a little bit, but I guess, I know the optics are that, hey, if the students aren't here, how can you keep student athletes there and then play? It might actually be the best thing for them. Right now we're, and I would think Dabo would feel the same way. Like, they're doing well, we're doing well. We're going to start our workouts again next week. There's no students on campus. Now there's students, all through the community, but, our guys are locked into what it is that they want to do, and they're trying to do the best they can to play a season for sure.
Yeah, it's almost like y'all have had a bubble.
Semi.
Yeah.
Because it's not like they're still able to see a few folks and go eat and do different things. But yeah, they're not
as much of one as you can have on a college campus.
Correct.
When students aren't all over campus.
That's right.
Brad Brownell, this has been fantastic. Really, really appreciate your time. Always enjoy the conversation.
Thank you, my friend. Good to be with you. Stay safe over there.
Yeah, you too. All right. Thanks to Brad Brownell for joining us. Also, thanks to our very loyal sponsors for making this possible, including our newest sponsor, Jack Oliver's Pool Spa and Patio. Man, just reading the words Big Green Egg got me hungry here at lunchtime. And, of course, thanks to all of you for making this a part of your listening routine. We'll be back next week. Everybody have a great rest of the week. Cheers.